Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Hacks and Hobbies. And today we have a truly inspiring guest who has mastered the art of search engine optimization and balancing family life. Damien, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast.
Good to be here. Good to see you again. Excited to chat.
You know, you're a husband, father of three, and a powerhouse in the world of SEO. Nearly 20 years ago, you beat $1 billion company by outranking their website on Google, and you've never looked back since. You're also the author of the best-selling SEO book Outrank and founder of the SEO National and International Search Engine Marketing Company. Now, you've worked with some amazing clients. My personal favorite, Tony Robbins, because I grew up listening to his CDs 20 plus years ago, Russell
Yeah.
Brunson's NBA teams, and even some amazing businesses that were featured on Shark Tank. It's truly a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, it'll be fun to kind of unpack that little highlight reel. Yeah.
Now, I'm excited to deep dive into your journey and learn more about how you've balanced building a global company but dedicating time to your family. As a parent myself with four kids, that's something that I have to draw a boundary line like, okay, after this time, it's family time. Like everything else is business. So, talk to us about, how did you realize that you had a knack for SEO and what was the first big victory like when you outranked a $1 billion company on Google?
So I first got into SEO because my background was originally web design. So obviously those are kind of similar universes.
Yeah.
And what had happened was one of my design clients said, "What do you know about Google?" And this is a great story for early entrepreneurs. And I actually was just um, telling not this story, but the action items from this story to another startup entrepreneur who said, "I don't know how to get my first clients." And so what I did, which I think is a great opportunity for new entrepreneurs, is when that client asked me, "What do you know about Google?" I said, "I know enough that I think I can help you, but I don't know enough that I feel comfortable charging you." But then obviously, you want to try and figure out an arrangement, but morally, I didn't want to take their money. And
Mm-hmm.
so what I said was, how about this? Let's agree to some goals. And if we hit those goals, then you owe me retroactively and we start a retainer. And so what's great about that is then the client has nothing to lose, but then you're still incentivized to see if you can make something happen. So
Yeah.
that was my first SEO client, who's still an SEO client 17 years later. And then I had taken them, there was another client they had referred for web design. And so I was able to go back and go, "Hey, these guys, here's what we just did. Do you want to try out the same thing? I'm really curious about this." And so they said, yeah, ended up hitting those goals as well. And so there were my first two clients. And then I knew early on that if as I started to pursue an agency, which maybe we tell that story here in a bit too, is like how I started the agency to begin with, is I knew pretty early on the advantages to not being a one-stop shop. And I didn't want to offer it all. And so when I started to explore SEO, I thought, let's give this enough time to see if this is my thing. And let's not do paid ads, social media, and then 10 other things.
Mm-hmm.
And it ended up being my thing. So that's how I got into it. But there's lots of different directions we can go from there.
Yeah. Now, what's really interesting is you not only said that, hey, I only know enough and I'm not feeling comfortable charging you for it. How about we go in together and learn from the experience? But if we do win, you're going to come and hire me as a client. That's a, like you said, it's a win-win situation where no parties is losing, but then you also get that experience of making that work for that client.
Yeah, and then it sets an extra level of trust too, because you were willing to extend a favor or take the risk on their behalf, and so it really helps. It's a great opportunity, like you said, win-win, but also there's other layers to it that are beneficial.
So let's dig into the simplest form of what is search engine optimization. Yes, it is um, optimizing the web pages. And when you mentioned web design, yes, I also started in web design years ago. So it's really, good to see that there's so many more people coming from that web design experience and adding on top of that layers of, hey, these are the different things that are going to help that's design pop. So talk to me about some of the things that were implemented initially that enable that search engine optimization to make that website stand out.
Well, kind of your first thing about what's a basic definition of SEO is your goal is to show up higher on search engines for words you can monetize, but without paying for ads. And so it's based on reputation of the website, which kind of ties in your next question. Is SEO at its core is really just three scopes. And the scopes have a lot of subsets of them, but too many people overcomplicate SEO or they try to, hack the system and try to
Mm,
cut corners and figure out where the loopholes are. But I've always just stayed and focused on these three main pillars, which are one is how good or bad is your website built? So it's really simple things like does it load quickly or is it mobile friendly? Two is content. So you can only show up on Google for what Google can read. So do you have unique value added content? And then three is external credibility. Do other people talk about your brand? Do they link to your website, reviews, and things
mm,
like that? So where design comes into that, there's a couple of interesting things about that is because design plays a really important part uh, because of that first pillar of SEO, which is the structure. And a lot of times, it's what's effective for SEO is the opposite of what people would think. And so, usually, when we come in and we board a new account, we're not really looking to add stuff in that first pillar of structure. We end up removing a lot of stuff.
mm,
And so there's a difference between designs that look pretty and designs that convert. And usually it's more minimalistic designs because when you have like these really visually stunning designs, then the problem you create is distraction. And so it might look nice, but now people are stuck on whatever the visual distractions are instead of the simplicity of just guiding them to whatever the problem or service or solution that you offer for them.
I love it. So those three pillars, I think, make it really simple to then implement instead of going to 10 different places. Like, hey, if you just focus on these three things, you're going to be able to really stand out. And looks like those strategies and those experiences that you had with your clients also became the foundation of your book, Outrank.
Yeah, conceptually, yeah. So I wrote the book because honestly, I wrote it because I got tired of all the crap and garbage that was out there.
Yeah.
And so I wanted a resource to be able to help people. And so a lot of times people come to me and, for one reason or another, it's not a fit, but I still want to help them. And so I wanted a resource that I could go, look, maybe our budget doesn't line up. But if you're willing to put in the time, here's the answers. And so then as I started writing it, then I got into seeing all the crap that was out there. And so I ended up building in a lot of that into the book. And so I have some chapters where it's like as you shop around SEO, here's all the myths to avoid. As you qualify an agency, here's the things that you should ask them, and here's the ways that they should be able to respond to that. So it largely just became a way that I could help people. And
Mm,
of course, it's turned into something. What's been cool is what it's turned into. Because I wrote it for the purpose of helping people, then I actively just give it away. And so I give it away online, I give away physical copies, and now it's turned into this major source of credibility. And so there's a lot that we could unpack from that concept of helping others because, like you said in the beginning, working with cool people like Tony Robbins and Russell Brunson and sports teams and those people ended up being introduced or coming to me. And it wasn't that I approached them.
yeah.
And I've never ran any paid ads. I don't have any lead magnets. I don't have any email list. And so all these
Mm,
traditional things that, there's nothing wrong with them.
yeah.
But when you give value, then there's an untouchable market that you then get access to by helping others without expecting in return. And then you end up getting more than you could have asked for had you tried to be intentional about it.
Wow, that's so powerful. Give, and so basically you focus on giving value to people. And like, it's funny because as you were mentioning in the story, or in the talk that you gave at Capshovians, right? Capshovians Live, you're giving away more value than somebody would pay for if they were to hire somebody, right? Because
Hmm.
of the giving nature you have. And that again builds that credibility. And I talked to some people and they were like, you, I don't want to share all my secrets on my YouTube videos. Like, I don't want to share all of this. But the fact of the matter is, them keeping it bottled up shows that they're not looking to help everybody, only if there was a dollar value attached to it.
Yeah, and I get why people do that, and I think the majority of us go through that phase. And so I think what people are missing is the trust in the opportunity on the other side of that. And that
Yeah.
is a hard leap of faith, because it's like, well, if I give it away for free, why would people pay me? Well, the way that I look at it is, and I think I touched on this at Capshovians, is
Mm-hmm.
there's basically three types of content consumers. The way that I've kind of broken it down in my world, and so when I give it away, I have these three people. One is the type of person that takes your advice and runs, and then they go implement it. And so you don't get them as a customer. Well, they never were your customer, so you didn't really lose them, but you did
Mm-hmm.
help somebody. And so now you start to grow your reputation. And then the second type of content consumer is the person that might need you later or knows a referral that might need you later. And so then that does become a potential monetization lead. Or at the very least, again, you help somebody and you build your reputation. Or the third is they need your thing and then they buy because you established expertise. So in the beginning, I just gave away stuff because it felt good and I liked helping people. But then I
Mm-hmm.
started to see these seeds that were unknowingly planted over the months and years start to kind of come to life. And I could start to connect the dots to when I helped somebody or when I helped somebody that referred the person that became a lead. So then I started being more intentional about it because it continued to amplify the feel good factor, but then I could
Mm-hmm.
continue to quantify it as it was benefiting the agency. And so now it's blossomed into this amazing thing where we do several million dollars a year and we have zero lead acquisition. Like we
Mm-hmm.
don't do anything to generate leads other than results in reputation and referrals.
Man, that's so powerful. I absolutely love it. And it inspires me, as I'm talking to you, to, just give away all the information, because either you give it away or they're going to get it from somewhere else, regardless, right? If somebody's going and
Hmm.
searching for information, they're going to find it one way or another, because Google and because YouTube. Um, Now, what's really cool is you've also focused on balancing family and business. You've built a successful global company while being dedicated husband and a father. What strategy what strategies have you implemented to ensure that you prioritize family time while also growing your business?
I think it kind of started when I was younger. Grew up in, had an alcoholic stepdad and wasn't financial stability. And so pretty early on, I was like, okay, how do I not do this? Right. And so then you start to pay attention to the world a little bit differently. Instead of looking at things like, oh, my life sucks, or, you know, this is the way it is, you start to go, okay, how do I break these cycles? How do I do the opposite or accomplish the opposite of the current environment? And
Mm-hmm.
so that's probably where it was birthed. And then I'm the oldest of seven. And so then I could kind of visually see the quickness in which my siblings would grow up. And so I could kind of make that comparison to like if I had my own kids. So as parents, you always hear like, it goes by fast. But being the oldest of seven, I could also visualize it and
Mm-hmm.
see how quickly my siblings would grow up. And so my wife and I, we've been together 20 years and we waited 5 years to have kids. And so in that window, it was like, okay, I know we're going to have kids at some point, but I remember by the time we started trying to have kids and she was pregnant with our first kid, I remember sitting in the living room of our old house going, okay, now there's a clock to this window until our first kid is born. And I remember thinking to myself, I should grind it out now so I
Mm-hmm.
don't have to do so later. And so in that thought process, it was like, okay, put in the extra time now to save and provide for freedom later, a flexibility of time later. And so that's not to say that I didn't do late nights and things like that
Mm-hmm.
over the years, but it started to set these expectations. And I just, from even before our first kid was born, family was priority. And so when you start to integrate that into your life, then it's not so much like how you that you have to balance family and work, but if you just prioritize family by default, everything else fills in the spaces outside of
Mm,
family. And so it makes it a lot easier. Like in my mind, I never have to juggle anything. It's like, well,
yeah,
my kids have a soccer game, go into the soccer game. So there's nothing in that window and it just ends up kind of solving itself.
man, I love it. And how do you encourage your team to maintain a similar kind of balance?
I encourage them to have the same flexibility that I do. So, like a lot of things that I do is I don't have Facebook Messenger on my phone. I don't have email on my phone. Our company phone auto attendance shut off at 5 p.m. We have a whole page in our agreement that says reasons not to hire us. And in it, it says, you don't get my cell phone number. We're not available on weekends. We're not available after hours. And so we set these rules of engagement with our clients. And then really, it's for peace of mind, but then it's
Mm-hmm.
also the more peace of mind you have, the better you can serve that client. Because at some point, especially newer entrepreneurs, they think they have to be available 24/7. And if they're not, they think that the client that interprets that there's like a lack of value there. And
Yeah,
it's actually the complete opposite. The more you establish boundaries, the more your clients end up respecting you. And what's interesting is this contract page that we have that says reasons not to hire us. It's a full page in our contract. And when I send the proposals, I even note in the email, like, hey, attached is your proposal. Note on page 9, reasons not to hire us. And so I make the clients very aware. In
mm-hmm.
DocuSign, they have to initial that page. And so what happens is I get more compliments on that page than anything because they now know that you are an expert and you take this serious. And so all these things that most newer entrepreneurs are nervous about, it's only weird if you make it weird or if you don't proactively set those expectations. I've had that page for, I don't know, probably 8 years. And I've had
Wow,
those rules of engagement of you don't get my cell phone number um, for 16 out of the 17 years. Like the first year, I didn't purposely give it out. I just didn't have a business number and things like
sure.
that. And so in those 17 years, I've never had a client complain that they can't get a hold of me. And there's times where in the lead negotiations, they're like, well, how do you communicate? Do I get your cell phone number? And I tell them no. Then there's like a 5 minute or 5 second, like, because they're probably not used to being told that. But then I
Yeah.
explain why. And if you explain the why, then they don't care. And I go, look, I'm happy to support you. And it just happened yesterday. I said they asked for my cell phone number, and I said no, we communicate through email and Slack. And for my own peace of mind, I keep my phone just to my friends and family.
Mm.
And what happened? They complimented it. They said, good for you. I wish I'd done that because I am bombarded with phone calls.
Man, that's a really, really great rule to abide by because, we only have so much limited time in our days, and you only want to focus on work when it's work time and, not be bombarded by these things that are not life threatening either, right?
Hmm.
My God, my
Yeah.
website is down. How am I going to get business? Well, it's going to be back up. Don't worry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that could open up a whole other thing where, in addition to communicating proactively, you proactively solve issues like that. So, an example of a website down, us as the SEO, that is directly not our responsibility, but
Yeah.
indirectly it is
Yeah.
because it's for the benefit of the website to be optimized. And so we put that in the agreement, right? Like your website uptime is not our responsibility, though
Mm.
we support it. And, here's ways to get around that. One is make sure you have a good host. And so we always audit who the client's host is and make sure they're on a reliable host. But what we don't tell them, but we do behind the scenes, is we set up uptime monitoring. And so there's tools where it'll real time actively monitor websites.
Yeah.
The notices you can have send an email, you can have, we've set ours to send a zap to Slack. And so we
Mm-hmm.
have an alerts channel in our Slack that's for security breaches, for website downtime. And because we have a team that's across the world, there's always somebody that's awake. Therefore, nobody has to manage this outside of business hours.
Yeah,
Somebody is on business hours at all times. And so then somebody can take care of it. And so there's ways to proactively manage things like that.
I love that so much, Damon. Now, you've been running your business globally, and like you mentioned, there's somebody in work hours all the times. What are some of the challenges and benefits you've encountered with this setup, and what advice would you give other business owners who are looking to build or improve their remote teams?
Yeah, I mean, this is actually a really simple answer. It's a complicated problem, but there's a really simple solution.
Hmm.
And it's your team is as good or as bad as the documentation you provide them. It's that simple. And so when we started, the first year or two in my agency, it was just me. And then year two or three, then I added like one VA. And then I got to four. My phases of scale of size were like solopreneur, one VA, four VAs, 10 VAs, 15 VAs, then 25 team members. And then right now we're at 40. And so as that grew and we got to around the 8 to 10 team member mark, then it was like you just run out of you to go around.
Yeah.
And so you have no choice but to delegate. And what I would highly recommend earlier entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs that are starting to get to this breaking point is you are never going to have more time. You're always going to have less.
Hmm.
So I agree that documenting your processes sucks, but it will not get easier. So just get it over with.
Yeah.
So what we did is, I had processes, but they were like some were on a spreadsheet, some were in my head, some were on a Word doc. And so I had to consolidate those so then I could grant access to it to the team. And I was in that breaking point where I didn't have the time to commit to documenting all this, but I didn't have a choice not to.
Hmm.
And so for me, it was like 2 or 3 hours every other day for a year. It took forever
Wow.
because the way that I did it was largely two rounds. The first round was like document all the black and white stuff, like the really obvious things, like you just do this and it's easy. You always do this. But then it was actually 3 rounds. So then the second round was like, okay, go back and work on the stuff that's more dynamic. Okay, are there variables to this equation? Okay, how do you
Mm.
do this on a website that's on WordPress versus a website that's on Shopify? What are the different paths that a client's website can take? And then that solved most of the problems. What was the hardest is after you document all that, then you realize there's still so much left but it's non-tangible things. It's
Yeah.
like the wild card scenarios. Like you can't possibly document every scenario that's out there for your customers. Like there's just too many variations. So then you have to document for your team the thought processes to find the solution on their own.
Mm.
And so that was really helpful where I gave my team like, okay, if this one thing isn't documented, do we have documentation at least to figure out how to solve it on our own? And so you go through a couple phases, but when you do that, now you can maintain quality control at scale. So there's a lot of other things we could talk about, but that's probably one of the most important things is you really need to dial in your documentation. Otherwise, if they suck, it's your fault.
That's so true. Having the documentation really helps in moving the needle forward and not having any of those or or empowering your team members to be able to fill in the gaps or hey, if you can't solve it, at least give it a try and then we can come together and solve that problem together.
Sure.
Document it.
Yeah.
Now, you started your business right before the 2008 recession and have navigated through various economic downturns, including tripling your revenue during the recent pandemic. What are some key lessons you've learned about growing a business during challenging times, and how can other entrepreneurs apply these lessons today?
It's largely kind of what we touched on about giving value. Um, you know, I started my business in 2007, at least formally. And so then a year later was a major recession. But that was the first time where I saw like measurable growth. Now it's relative because back then might have meant me going from 40,000 to 80,000.
Mm-hmm.
But as like a solopreneur with one VA, that's a massive increase. And so then over those years, we've had hiccups, and then, the pandemic, like you said, we doubled when a lot of other people just got crushed or went out of business. And like right now, as of the time we're recording this, it seems like we're kind of heading into something again.
Mm-hmm.
And what's happening now is now I'm starting to see the flood of leads come in. And so like my lead flow, like I said, I don't have an outbound source of lead generation. And
Sure.
so
It's
our
mostly
inbound lead
inbound.
flow, yeah, so everything's all organic or referrals. And so like our average lead flow could be 0 to 4 leads per month. Like it's really low.
Mm-hmm.
But but that provides enough for consistent, predictable growth because all of our clients are on reoccurring retainers. And so what we've noticed over the last couple months, which as I've been through a couple of these economic scenarios, is now I can start to see a pattern that happens. And I'm starting to see this pattern unfold again, which is there's a pause where we don't get leads for a while, nobody leaves, but all of a sudden we still have people reaching out and saying, I'm curious about SEO, but maybe they don't ask for a proposal. And then all of a sudden, just a flood of leads. And
Mm-hmm.
that switch has flipped in the last 2 weeks. And so all summer we had very low lead flow. In the spring we had consistent lead flow, but in the summer it was really dry. But then all of a sudden, we were fortunate enough to get some big respectable accounts. Like that's when we got Tony Robbins, and that was kind of a wild card, which we can share that story later. But we got leads, but they didn't come from the traditional referral sources. And then now all of a sudden we're getting a ton of leads. Like I just had one today that was from somebody that I talked to in 2021
Mm.
that I just helped back then,
Yeah.
right? And then we've had, if we have 0 to 4 leads per month, then we tend to average 0 to 1 new clients every 30 to 60 days. And like last week, we onboarded 3. And
Yeah.
so if you can embrace delayed gratification, then it becomes, in the beginning, it's hard because even like I said, we don't have a predictable lead source. But if you do it consistently enough, it does become stable and it's free and it's inbound. And so there's a higher conversion rate and there's a better relationship because they came to you or you've already helped them. So it makes for a better client, which works out for better retention. So for me, it's just been, keep my head down, don't cut corners, always over provide value. And then that there's a delayed gratification in which whatever that seed you plant is, more often than not, comes back later greater than had you excessively pushed it to try to close them prematurely.
I love it. You know, you brought up, I mean, I brought up Tony Robbins, you brought up Tony Robbins. Let's go into that story because I want to know, was it during the early times when Tony Robbins himself was figuring out websites and SEO, or was it towards the later? Like, I want to know that story.
Oh no, this is brand new. Tony signed just 3 months ago.
Oh,
So the way that we got that reinforces what we've been talking about giving value. And so a lot of times when you had brought up like, well, I don't want to give away all my stuff on YouTube. And so I give away all my stuff on YouTube. I give away all my
mm,
stuff on Facebook. And so I'm mostly active on Facebook and LinkedIn. My team is now starting to put stuff on YouTube. And what happens is when you show up consistently for your area of expertise, then people begin to know you as an expert in that thing. And so too many other people are always switching things. They're just too desperate. And so it's like whenever there's a new shiny object, they switch
mm,
gears. And so, how many different experts have we known in NFTs and then crypto and now AI experts? And before that, there was a bazillion other things.
yeah.
And the problem is people don't know what you're truly good at. And so they might go, okay, yeah, I could go to so and so for AI. And it's not that they think you're bad. They just don't know
Mm,
how confident they are in thinking you're good
yeah.
because they know you've switched things. But in my case, it's like I only talk about the same things over and over and over, which is my appreciation for my wife and kids, SEO, and then entrepreneurship in general. That's
Mm,
the only thing I talk about. I don't get caught up in new trends. I don't talk about politics. I don't talk about religion. And I only talk about the things that I am an expert at and that provide me value, or I can give value. Now, if you're an expert and find value in talking about those other things, then do it. But whatever it is, do it because it's truly you, not because you're
Mm,
trying to game the algorithms. Because then people see you show up consistently, and if you truly believe in those things you talk about, then you show up more authentically. And that's the part that people miss is the authenticity. And so people follow you for your expertise, but they will convert when they relate to you as a person. So that's why you want to show up authentically. So now how Tony Robbins comes into this is because I always talk about SEO. Anytime somebody makes a post and goes, I got an SEO problem, or who do you know that's good? Then I just get tagged left and right. And Perry Belcher made a post that said, who
mm,
is masterfully wonderful at SEO. I remember it was some interesting words like that. And the guy had like 100 replies, and like 50 of them were people tagging me.
mm,
And so then I got a private message from Tony's head of marketing, and he said, "Hey, I'm so and so. I'm with Tony Robbins' team. We're looking for new SEO. I just want to cut the crap, and I just saw you tagged, and I'm trying to just get to the top." And so we scheduled a call, and they had some specific things they wanted to address. I was able to answer their questions, and effectively closed them on one call. After that, it was just waiting for legal.
mm.
And what that story highlights is giving value without expecting in return, because then you establish expertise, which builds a reputation. And then it creates this inbound ecosystem where people go, you are the person that does just the one thing. And so now instead of you being an option in that thing, you are the only option in that thing.
Yeah. And I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that story. It reminds us that if you stay that course, stay the lane of your own expertise, and just only talk about those expertise, even though you might be able to offer additional things, like you started in web design, but you just focus on SEO. And, as web design might be something that um, your team can guide them on, but then you're focused, like the main inbound
Hmm.
funnel or inbound marketing is all around SEO.
Exactly. We do a ton of design. I almost never talk about it.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. All right, what's amazing, Damon, that number one, it's been a really amazing conversation. I got to learn a lot from you. Got to learn a little more about SEO than I knew before, even though I've been in the space. But the practicality of what you've shared is almost like, hey, here's the guidebook. Go get the book. Go implement it, and you'll see yourself growing. Now, share with me three practical hacks that our business owners can implement and start improving their online visibility today.
Let's see if two immediate ones come to mind. Let's see if a third one comes out of me. So the first one is check your website's page speed, right? It's really simple things. More often than not, that's the first problem we solve. So there's lots of great tools out there. The one that I use the most is called GT Metrics. It's GTmetrix. They used to have a free option. I think they might have recently went paid only, but
Hmm.
they're really great because they tell you exactly what's bottlenecking your website. There's lots of other cool tools out there, like Google has a tool called PageSpeed Insights,
Yeah.
but it gives you abstract, reasons why your website. So GT Metrics tells you very specifically, it says it's this thing on this part of your website. And so what you want to do is you want to get your website loading at 3 seconds or less, and GT Metrics will tell you that speed. Now, the reason why that matters is because a really simple way to think about SEO is who makes Google look good. And so what I mean by that is if a user comes to your website and it's painfully slow, then that makes Google look bad for recommending it. And
Hmm.
so the better the user experience, the more likely Google is to recommend it. So that's why we said keep your design simple, make it easy to navigate. So I'd say that page speed, easy user experience, and then two is content. We talked about these three core pillars of SEO, but there's lots of subsets of them. And so people go, well, what are the 100 things I need to do? The two most impactful things are those is one, your page speed and user experience, and two is content. focus on unique value added content. And so a lot of times when people start doing SEO, especially with AI, is they write for the sake of writing instead of writing to solve a problem. And so when you show intentionality around your content creation, then a lot of things happen. One is you attract a pre-qualified buyer. Because if you're writing to solve a problem, then you bring in the person whose problem your product or service can solve. So focus on solving problems. And it's like the same thing we talked about giving away answers on social
Mm.
media or YouTube or wherever. Put that in written content on your website. So I'll leave it at that. Those are two like really easy wins. Just fix your page speed and then just really focus on bringing your own personality and your unique value and experience to whatever market you serve in.
I love it, Damon. This has been truly an amazing experience. Having conversation with you, SEO expert, author of Outrank. Now, towards the end of this episode, I'd like to ask these fun 6 questions to get to know your host. Sorry, to get to know the guest a little better. So these 6 questions are pretty fun. So number one, Damon, what is the one hobby that you wish you got into?
These guitars in the background.
Let's showcase the guitars. I love him. Uh, I see an electric guitar and acoustic guitar. Which one's your favorite?
I've used the acoustic more, so I'll give you the short story is I've wanted to get into music for a while.
Yeah.
I followed music into radio, so I ended up
Hmm.
being an on-air DJ for 7 years, and so I've always enjoyed music, but and I've always had good hand-eye coordination. And so when COVID happened, like we said, business took off, but there was like the first week in March where I had some clients that were iffy, and so I said, "Oh, maybe this is my time where I'll find a window to finally pick up guitars." So I bought the guitars, and then business just took off after that, and I haven't committed to it since.
I feel you, man. I feel I have one. I have a acoustic guitar sitting in a box back here as well. I used to uh, jam in a band a few years ago, and every once in a while I'll jam with my uh, neighbor down the road where he plays the music, and I'll sing
Hmm,
along. But that's it's a lot of fun. All right,
yeah.
next up, what did you want to be when you were a child?
I never had anything specific. What I did know is I had a confidence that I would figure it out. I
Mm-hmm.
never knew in which direction, in what
Sure.
industry. I had no, intentional thing I was pursuing. But I think what helped me find success was giving myself the freedom to not know. Because I think a lot of us entrepreneurs are see the wins and especially on social media and they're like,
Mm-hmm.
hi, I suck, I'm behind, I need to pick something, and then you end up committing prematurely to something you don't enjoy or is not sustainable. So I just gave myself the freedom to not know and kind of figure it out.
I love it. You had mentioned that you're oldest of 7 siblings. Me too. I'm the oldest of
Mm,
seven siblings as well. And then
yeah.
to learn that you're also in graphic design, I was like, me too. I was like, there's a lot of parallels that I'm
Yeah.
drawing here, which is really fun to hear. Now, as somebody growing up with web design and being the oldest of 7 siblings, uh, it's really fun to see that over time you see your siblings grow, but then you kind of like disconnected in one way or another, but still, you're like, hey, you've got to lead a charge, and it's really interesting to hear that you really didn't say, hey, what do I want to be when I grew up, uh, but you did find something that was really in line with what you love to do as a graphic designer.
Yeah, after doing this for a while, probably about 4 years ago, I started to wonder like, why am I still doing this? Like it started to become this random question in the back of my head is like, this is a really long time and you don't see this very often. So like, is
Yeah.
something different here? And I was nervous to kind of explore that with myself because I didn't want to like unravel that I hate this and all of a sudden now I have to change my whole life. And what I found out was I do still very greatly enjoy this. And so then it was like, okay, why? And the conclusion I came to was that SEO is consistent and predictable enough that
Mm,
I know what I'm walking into every day. So there's a sense of stability, but it's also perpetually changing. And so there's always something new to keep it exciting. And I think that's why I'm still in it. And then plus you get exposed to really cool businesses. I mean, a lot of our clients are in industries that I would have never thought of
mm,
or had I thought of, realized had such success opportunities. And
yeah,
so there's always just these random cool things we get exposed to.
I love it, man. All right, next up, what is your favorite movie or TV show?
So I am horrible. I'll give you an answer, but in general, I'm horrible at favorites. Like I don't have, I'll give you a couple movies, but I don't have like a favorite band. I don't have an absolute favorite movie. I don't have a favorite color. I don't have a favorite food. Um, the movies I tend to watch, if I ever rewatch a movie, are like Alice in Wonderland,
Mm-hmm.
Wizard of Oz, Willy Wonka. This is top of mind because somebody asked me the same thing just like a week ago in a post. And so I talked about those, but then what I followed it up with is the movies I enjoy the most, but I don't necessarily rewatch, are
Sure.
the ones that are not traditional, like 12 Monkeys, Vanilla
Mm,
Sky, Matrix, things like that that shift your perspective. Um, those ones are kind of food for my brain because I think my brain's on overdrive. And so when I have things that are like totally shift
mm-hmm.
the way that you can kind of interpret things,
Yeah,
those are the ones that I find most entertaining.
that's funny. I think an earlier guest that I spoke with also mentioned 12 Monkeys as one of their movies that they enjoy watching. So
Mm.
there's a little commonality. I mean, those are really mind bending. Like Inception is another one, right? A
Yeah,
really
Inception.
enjoyable
Uh-huh.
experience. Like, oh my God, what actually happened?
Yeah.
All right, I love it. Next up, if you could play a character in any movie, what would you choose?
Mm. I don't know. I might not have an answer. I might not have an answer for this one because one, I don't have favorites, and two, I am horrible at remembering uh, like the movie details. So I'm gonna have to
Sure.
pass on this one.
Like, would you play Tom Cruise in Vanilla Sky?
No, no. Like, if I walk through different characters,
Yeah,
even if it's ones I like, movies I like, it's like I don't want to be. I would compare it to my life. Like I don't like being the center of attention,
sure.
though I do like validation for,
Mm,
accomplishments. Um, but I don't want to be on I don't want to be like, when I worked in radio, it exposed me to celebrity life because from two views. One is you are a micro celebrity within your local community.
yeah,
And two is you get to meet actual celebrities, the global celebrities, backstage and things like that. And I want nothing to do with almost all of that stuff. And so, I wouldn't want to be a super hypey guy in a movie. I used to be a lot funnier than I am now, so
mm,
I maybe would feel some sort of connection to the guy that makes people laugh. I don't know. Probably just a pretty nonchalant, uh, hidden, you know, millionaire neighbor guy that just
sure.
helps people out but keeps to himself.
I love it, man. Thank you. Thank you for playing along, man. Next up, who is your favorite superhero?
Oh, I for sure won't have an answer to this one. Yeah. I haven't followed, actually that's funny because the post that people ask me the favorite movies and I was saying it was just recently is I had made a comment back that other than watching Spider-Man with my kids, I have never seen any DC or Marvel movies. So,
Hmm.
uh,
Well, good to know. Maybe we'll have to check back again. Maybe you've seen some new movies.
yeah.
I love it, brother. All right, last question. If you were a board game, what would it be?
Um, I like the strategy behind Monopoly.
Mm.
I like that it's like a form of chess where you have to think several steps ahead.
Yeah,
Maybe that. And for some reason, when I was a kid, I really liked to play Candyland. So maybe Candyland's in there somewhere.
I like it, Damon. Well, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure. Uh, Thank you again. It's been a real pleasure having you on the show today. I'm like tripping all over my words. Your journey and insights
Yeah.
into SEO, balancing family life are truly inspiring. As a parent myself, I like to have boundaries around business and work, or business and life. So it's important to see that I'm not the only one. There's others like that, and being successful at it as well. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to add and share with our listeners?
Oh, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm launching a free community here in a little bit. And so if you want to grab the book that we mentioned, you can go to freeseobook.com. And on the thank you page, there's no upsells, instant download, but you can get access to the group that I'm launching soon.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Bert. Damon will be sure to include the links to the show notes as well. You've got a really easy domain name to remember, freeseobook.com, to get that book. Thank you again for coming on to the show.
Thanks, everybody.
And to our listeners, remember that this and to our listeners, remember that success in business is not just about outranking your competition. It's also about creating a life that's balanced and fulfilling. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep hacking away at your passions.